Why is saying no so hard? Have you ever found yourself agreeing to something, knowing deep down that you don't want to do it? Whether it's helping a friend when you're already swamped with work, or taking on an extra task at the office when your plate is already full. Most of us have been there, saying yes when we really mean no. So why do we do this? It could be guilt, fear of hurting someone's feelings, or maybe it's just the pressure to always be available, to be seen as reliable and kind. But there's a hidden cost to this habit. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your values or priorities, you're saying no to yourself. Stoicism, the ancient philosophy of resilience and self-discipline, teaches us that true wisdom lies in knowing our limits, setting boundaries, and learning the art of saying no in order to protect what truly matters in our lives. In this video, we'll explore how Stoic principles can help us master the difficult task of saying no, not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom and self-respect. Stoicism teaches that our time and energy are finite resources. Just as a Stoic doesn't waste their mental energy on things beyond their control, they also guard their time. Let's take a deeper look at why we struggle with saying no. Why we struggle with saying no. 1. The fear of rejection. One of the main reasons is our fear of rejection. Humans are social creatures by nature. We want to belong. We want to be liked. The idea of disappointing someone or being seen as unreliable can be deeply uncomfortable. We say yes because we don't want to risk damaging our relationships, whether they're personal or professional. Think of a time when you agreed to attend an event, even though you had no interest in going. You might have done so because you didn't want to offend the person who invited you. The fear of being seen as unkind or uncooperative leads us to overcommit. The Stoics, however, remind us that we cannot control how others feel about us. What matters is that we act according to reason and virtue. If we decide something is not right for us, it's important to make a decision based on what aligns with our values, not on the fear of how others might perceive us. 2. The need to please. Another reason is our tendency to be people pleasers. We're taught that being kind means always being available, always helping others. But there's a huge difference between being kind and being a doormat. Kindness doesn't mean sacrificing your well-being or stretching yourself thin just to make others happy. People-pleasing comes from a desire to be validated by others. But Stoicism teaches us that real validation comes from within. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, emphasized the importance of living in harmony with nature and reason, not in constantly seeking approval. When you are driven by the need to be liked, you lose sight of what is truly meaningful for you. True kindness, from a Stoic perspective, involves helping others when it aligns with your values, but not at the expense of your own well-being. To say no when necessary is to be kind to yourself, which ultimately allows you to be more present and effective in your genuine acts of service. 3. Cultural and societal pressure. Then there's the societal pressure. In today's fast-paced world, there's an unspoken expectation to always be busy, to always be doing more. Saying no can make you feel like you're falling behind, like you're not productive enough or dedicated enough. It's almost as if no is a sign of weakness, but the Stoics teach us otherwise. In our culture, busyness is often equated with success. We see people bragging about how little sleep they get or how overwhelmed they are with work, as if exhaustion were a badge of honor. But is this truly the measure of a meaningful life? Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, reminds us that life is long if you know how to use it. He advises us to be mindful of how we spend our time and not to let ourselves be swept away by the demands of others. Living deliberately with purpose and intention means having the courage to say no to the distractions that do not serve our ultimate goals. The Stoic perspective on saying no. So, how does Stoicism come into play when it comes to setting boundaries and saying no? At the heart of Stoic philosophy is the belief that we should focus only on what we can control and let go of everything else. In the words of Epictetus, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. Saying no is a powerful way of exercising that control. It's about taking responsibility for your time, your energy, and your life. The Stoics believed that we should live according to our values, not according to the whims of others. When you say no to things that don't align with your values, you're protecting what's most important to you. 1. Marcus Aurelius on boundaries. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers and a Roman emperor, often wrote in his journal about the importance of staying true to one's purpose. He said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This is a reminder that we don't owe anyone our time or energy unless it aligns with our principles. Think about how difficult it must have been for Marcus Aurelius to maintain boundaries while ruling an empire. Yet he constantly reminded himself to remain grounded, to prioritize his inner peace over the external demands of the world. He faced requests and demands from people every day, yet he knew that if he tried to please everyone, he would end up betraying himself. As modern individuals, our circumstances are different, but the challenge remains the same. We have to navigate our commitments to work, family, and friends while maintaining our inner tranquility. Like Marcus Aurelius, we need to remain centered, reminding ourselves that saying no to what's wrong allows us to say yes to what's right. 2nd, Epictetus on control. Epictetus also gives us a crucial lesson on saying no. He famously said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us." This simple concept is at the core of Stoicism. We can't control what people ask of us, but we can control our response. We can decide whether something deserves our time and energy. And sometimes the most powerful response is simply saying no. By practicing the dichotomy of control, we learn to let go of the things we cannot influence, like other people's expectations, and focus on what is within our power, our actions, and decisions. This is especially true when it comes to setting boundaries. People may not always understand or accept your no, but that's not within your control. What you can control is your reasoning for saying no and how you communicate it. Epictetus would urge us to maintain this distinction at all times. Ask yourself, is this request something I can manage? Will it bring me closer to my goals, or will it pull me further away from them? If the answer is no, you owe it to yourself to reject the request with grace and firmness. Why saying no is vital for your well-being. Saying no isn't just about freeing up your schedule. It's essential for protecting your mental and emotional well-being. Every yes we give to something misaligned with our values is an investment of time and energy that depletes our internal resources. Stoicism teaches us that our inner tranquility is of utmost importance, and saying no is an act of preserving that peace. 1. Preserving your energy. Think of your energy like a battery. Each day you wake up with a finite amount of it. When you say yes to activities, commitments, or people that drain you, you deplete this energy more quickly, leaving little for what truly matters to you. Imagine a scenario where you've promised to help a colleague with their project even though you have your own deadlines. You might feel obligated or worry that saying no will hurt the relationship, but in doing so, you risk neglecting your own work. You end up stressed, anxious, and overburdened. Stoicism, with its focus on self-control, teaches us that we must be wise stewards of our energy. A Stoic wouldn't waste their resources, whether mental, emotional, or physical, on things that don't serve their higher purpose. They would recognize that in saying no, they're not being selfish, but rather ensuring that their energy is spent on what is truly valuable. 2. Focus on what truly matters. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is the pursuit of virtue, living in accordance with reason and focusing on what is good. But how can you focus on the good when you're constantly distracted by unimportant tasks and obligations? Every yes to something trivial is a no to something meaningful. Think of a garden. If you plant too many seeds in a small plot of land, the plants will fight for nutrients, sunlight, and water. None of them will grow to their full potential. In the same way, saying yes to too many commitments spreads your attention thin, and nothing truly thrives. By learning to say no to distractions, you create space for what truly matters: your passions, your personal growth, and your deeper relationships. In the writings of Seneca, we are reminded of the fleeting nature of time. He warns against squandering time on things that don't matter. He famously wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." By saying no to things that don't align with your goals or values, you are protecting your most precious resource, time. 3. Preventing burnout. In today's world, burnout is a real issue. We're constantly expected to be on, whether it's at work, with family, or even on social media. But constantly saying yes can lead to exhaustion. By learning to say no, you're setting boundaries that protect your mental health, ensuring that you don't push yourself beyond your limits. Burnout happens when we stretch ourselves too thin, often because we don't know how to say no. It creeps in slowly. First you feel a little tired, then overwhelmed, and finally completely exhausted. What starts as a manageable workload spirals into stress, frustration, and resentment. If you don't take control of your commitments, they will take control of you. For a Stoic, burnout represents a loss of balance, which goes against the core Stoic principles of moderation and self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we must learn to be content with less and not be swept away by the whirlwind of obligations and external demands. By practicing the art of saying no, you are reclaiming your inner balance, ensuring that you don't burn out, and instead stay focused on your true purpose. Practical Stoic techniques to help you say no. Now that we've explored why saying no is important, let's dive into some practical Stoic techniques that can help you confidently say no when needed. These techniques are grounded in ancient wisdom, but are easily applicable in modern life. 1. Negative visualization. In Stoicism, negative visualization is a powerful tool. It involves imagining the worst-case scenario so that you're mentally prepared for it. Let's say you're afraid of saying no to a friend because you don't want to upset them. Using negative visualization, imagine that your friend does get upset. What's the worst that could happen? Would it end your friendship? Probably not. By facing your fears head-on, you reduce their power over you. Negative visualization teaches us to detach from our fears by confronting them. If we can picture the negative outcomes, we realize that most of our fears are exaggerated. When you practice negative visualization, you also gain the clarity to see that other people's emotional reactions are beyond your control. You learn to manage your own response and to trust that saying no will not lead to catastrophic consequences. For example, you might imagine saying no to a family member's request for help with a project. The family member might be disappointed, but ultimately, they'll find someone else or adjust their expectations. You have to remember that other people's emotions are not your responsibility. Epictetus said, "It is not events that disturb people, but their judgments about them." By anticipating reactions, you can release the anxiety tied to saying no. 2. The dichotomy of control. As mentioned earlier, the dichotomy of control is key in Stoicism. This principle divides life into two categories: things we can control and things we cannot. Before you agree to something, ask yourself, is this within my control? Does it align with my values and priorities? If the answer is no, then it's time to say no. Remember, you can't control how others react, but you can control your actions. When you internalize this concept, saying no becomes easier. You stop worrying about how your decision will be received, and instead focus on whether it's the right choice for you. This allows you to take back control of your life and manage your commitments more effectively. The dichotomy of control empowers you to focus on what truly matters, freeing you from the fear of judgment or the need to please. Imagine you're asked to take on an extra project at work that you know will stretch you too thin. By applying the dichotomy of control, you recognize that you can't control whether your boss will be disappointed, but you can control your decision to prioritize your well-being. Once you've made the decision to say no, the external outcome no longer holds power over you. 3. Journaling for clarity. Another practical Stoic technique is journaling. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote in his journal every day to reflect on his actions and thoughts. You can do the same. At the end of each day, write down the things you said yes or no to, and reflect on whether those decisions aligned with your values. Over time, this practice will help you gain clarity on what deserves your time and energy. Journaling is a form of self-inquiry that allows you to examine your decisions without judgment. You may find that certain yeses were rooted in fear or obligation, while others were made with a clear sense of purpose. By reflecting on these choices, you gain insight into your patterns and can begin to make more deliberate decisions moving forward. In your journal, you can also track your progress in setting boundaries. For example, if you're working on saying no more often, record the times when you successfully set a boundary. How did it feel? What was the reaction? This will give you the confidence to continue asserting yourself in the future. How to say no without guilt. One of the biggest obstacles to saying no is guilt. We worry that we'll disappoint others or that we'll come across as selfish. But Stoicism teaches us that we are not responsible for other people's reactions. We are only responsible for our own actions. If you're saying no in a way that aligns with your values and is respectful, there's no need for guilt. 1. Be honest but firm. When saying no, honesty is key. You don't need to give a long-winded explanation or make excuses. Simply be honest and firm. You can say something like, "I appreciate the offer, but I need to focus on my priorities right now." Being clear and respectful shows that you're serious about your boundaries. The Stoics valued truthfulness. They believed that we should speak with integrity, avoiding lies or exaggerations. When you say no, do so with sincerity. You don't need to justify your decision with elaborate reasons or feel pressured to soften the blow. A clear and honest no is much more respectful than a half-hearted yes. For example, if a friend asks you to attend an event and you simply don't have the energy, you can say, "Thank you for inviting me, but I need some time to recharge." You've acknowledged the invitation with gratitude while staying firm about your own needs. Over time, people will respect you more for your honesty. 2. Practice saying no. The more you practice saying no, the easier it becomes. Start small. Say no to something minor, like a casual invitation or a request for a favor. Over time, you'll build the confidence to say no to bigger things that don't align with your values. Practicing no can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to saying yes out of habit. But like any skill, setting boundaries improves with practice. You may stumble initially, but each no strengthens your resolve. Begin by identifying areas in your life where you're overcommitted or stretched too thin. Then start asserting yourself in those situations. For example, if a coworker asks you to help with a task that isn't part of your responsibilities, you can say, "I'm sorry, I have other priorities right now." It might feel uncomfortable at first, but with practice, you'll find that saying no becomes second nature. The virtue of wisdom, knowing when to say no. In Stoicism, wisdom is one of the 4 cardinal virtues, alongside courage, justice, and temperance. Wisdom is the ability to discern what is good, what is bad, and what is indifferent. When it comes to saying no, wisdom helps us understand when it is appropriate to refuse and when it is beneficial to agree. 1. Understanding. What is worth your time? Wisdom teaches us to recognize what is truly important. In life, many opportunities will come our way, and not all of them will be worth our time. It takes wisdom to differentiate between meaningful commitments and distractions. Seneca often reflected on how much time we waste on unimportant things. He wrote, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy." Saying no is an act of wisdom because it allows you to safeguard your most precious asset, time. Ask yourself, is this opportunity aligned with my long-term goals? Will saying yes move me closer to where I want to be, or is it merely a distraction? When you develop the wisdom to evaluate your choices critically, you'll find that saying no becomes a powerful tool in protecting your time and energy. 2. Deliberate decision-making. One of the key teachings in Stoicism is that we should not rush into decisions. Marcus Aurelius advised that we should act with deliberation, considering our choices carefully before making a commitment. Before saying yes to any request, pause and reflect. Don't let yourself be pressured into agreeing on the spot. Give yourself time to consider whether the request is something you can or should take on. A wise person knows that not every opportunity needs an immediate response. If you feel unsure about a commitment, say, "Let me think about it." This gives you time to evaluate whether it aligns with your values and whether you have the resources to follow through. By delaying your response, you can make a more informed and thoughtful decision. For instance, if someone asks you to take on a big project, instead of giving an impulsive yes out of obligation, say, "I need to check my schedule and get back to you." This simple act of pausing allows you to make decisions from a place of wisdom rather than haste. 3. Aligning with your values. Stoicism places great emphasis on living in accordance with one's values. The Stoics believe that a good life is one lived in harmony with nature and reason. When you say no, it's not just about protecting your time, it's about staying true to your values. Think of the times you've said yes out of guilt or pressure. How did you feel afterward? Did it leave you feeling drained or resentful? When your actions don't align with your core values, you experience inner conflict. This is why it's essential to use wisdom when deciding what to commit to. Before saying yes or no, reflect on your values. Does this request align with the person you want to be? Does it contribute to the goals you've set for yourself? If the answer is no, then saying no is an act of wisdom and integrity. Self-respect, the foundation of boundaries. Another key reason for learning to say no is that it fosters self-respect. Stoicism teaches that self-respect comes from living in accordance with virtue and maintaining our dignity in the face of external pressures. When you respect yourself, you don't let others dictate how you spend your time and energy. 1. Defending your boundaries. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It communicates to the world that your time, energy, and well-being are valuable. When you say no, you're defending your personal space and refusing to allow others to overstep. Epictetus taught that our primary duty is to guard our inner world, our thoughts, emotions, and values. He said, "You are not the master of another person's actions, but you are the master of your own." When you respect yourself, you take ownership of your life. And part of that ownership is saying no when necessary. For example, if someone consistently asks you for favors, and you've always said yes, they may start to take your time for granted. But by setting a boundary and saying no, you're reinforcing the message that your time is valuable and that you won't allow others to take advantage of it. You're not being unkind, you're simply respecting yourself. 2. Avoiding the trap of overcommitment. Another way that self-respect manifests is through avoiding overcommitment. When you take on too much, you risk spreading yourself too thin and failing to meet your commitments. This can lead to stress, anxiety, and feelings of inadequacy. Stoicism reminds us that moderation is key, and saying no is a crucial part of maintaining balance in life. When you respect yourself, you recognize your limits and don't push yourself beyond them. Overcommitment can lead to burnout, which not only harms you, but also diminishes your ability to help others. The Stoic practice of temperance or moderation teaches us to find balance in our commitments, avoiding excess in all areas of life. Saying no allows you to focus on the commitments that truly matter, ensuring that you can give your best effort to the things you value most. It's far better to commit to fewer things and do them well than to say yes to everything and deliver subpar results. 3. The power of self-worth. Saying no also reinforces your sense of self-worth. When you consistently put other people's needs ahead of your own, you send a message to yourself that your time and priorities don't matter. Over time, this can erode your self-esteem. But when you say no, you're affirming your right to prioritize yourself. You're acknowledging that your goals, needs, and well-being are just as important as anyone else's. This isn't selfishness, it's self-respect. The Stoics believed in the inherent value of each person. They taught that every individual has the capacity for reason and virtue, and that we should honor that potential by treating ourselves with dignity. When you say no in service of your well-being, you're practicing the Stoic principle of self-respect. The ripple effect of saying no. When you start saying no to the things that don't serve you, something amazing happens. You create space for the things that truly matter. You free up time and energy to invest in your passions, your relationships, and your personal growth. In this way, saying no isn't just a protective measure, it's an empowering one. 1. deepening your relationships. When you stop overcommitting, you can give more of yourself to the people and projects that truly matter. Instead of spreading yourself thin, you can invest deeply in the relationships and activities that bring you joy and fulfillment. By saying no to superficial commitments, you create the space to be more present with the people who are most important to you. You're no longer rushing from one obligation to the next, but instead, you can fully engage in the moments that matter. Consider the difference between attending a social event out of obligation versus spending quality time with a close friend or family member. When you say no to the former, you're able to show up fully for the latter, deepening your connection and enriching your life. 2. Fostering personal growth. Another benefit of saying no is that it gives you the space to focus on your personal growth. Stoicism teaches that we should always strive to improve ourselves, to grow in wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. But personal growth requires time and energy, two things that are scarce when you're overcommitted. When you say no to distractions, you can invest that time in your own development. Whether it's learning a new skill, pursuing a passion, or simply taking time for reflection, saying no allows you to prioritize your growth. In the long run, this not only benefits you, but also makes you a better person for those around you. For example, if you decline a social invitation to spend time reading or practicing a skill, you're investing in your long-term well-being and wisdom. Over time, these small acts of self-discipline compound, leading to significant personal growth. 3. Living with purpose. Finally, saying no allows you to live with greater purpose. The Stoics believe that a life of purpose is a life of meaning. When you align your actions with your values, you live with intention. Each decision becomes a step toward the person you want to be, and each no clears the path for you to follow your true purpose. When you stop saying yes to every demand, you can focus on the things that align with your higher goals. Whether it's building a meaningful career, nurturing important relationships, or dedicating time to a cause you believe in, saying no is a powerful way to live with greater intention. Living with purpose means that your actions are aligned with your values and that you're constantly moving toward your goals. The Stoics encouraged us to reflect on our purpose daily, reminding ourselves of what truly matters. By practicing the art of saying no, you're making space for a life of greater meaning and fulfillment. Conclusion: saying no is not an act of rejection. It's an act of affirmation. It's a way of affirming your values, your goals, and your well-being. By practicing the art of saying no, you empower yourself to live a more intentional, balanced, and fulfilling life. You honor your time, protect your energy, and create space for what truly matters. In the words of Epictetus, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. Saying no is a powerful response, a choice to live in alignment with your highest self, to protect your peace, and to focus on what is truly important. Remember, the art of saying no is a lifelong practice. Each time you assert your boundaries, you reinforce your self-respect and strengthen your commitment to living with wisdom. So embrace the power of no and use it as a tool to craft the life you truly desire.